welcome. My name is Luan Malake, and I'm Senior Researcher at the Healthy Materials Lab, and I manage the Dongia Healthier Materials Library, which are both at Parsons School of Design at the New School in New York. Thank you again for being here, and welcome to Duracryl, a healthier, resilient floor, the first event of our three-part fall series entitled The Fall of Plastics. If you're unfamiliar with our work, let me take a moment to introduce ourselves. The Healthy Materials Lab is a design-led research lab dedicated to creating a world in which the environment and people's health are placed at the center of all design decisions. What that means in practice is that we are raising awareness about toxics in our built environment and working to make healthier alternatives accessible to practitioners. We do this work with explicit focus on those designing, building, and living in affordable housing, because all people deserve healthier interior environments. One of the many ways that we are raising awareness about toxics is our podcast called Trace Material. In our most recent season called Stories from the Plastics Age, we're looking at the ways plastic has reshaped our culture, bodies, and environment over the last century. In the podcast, we've been looking back and trying to understand how we got here. In this series of events, we want to look forward. Where are we going from here? What materials might define the post-plastics age? With this event highlighting Netherlands-based flooring company Duracryl, we are promoting healthier and sustainable alternatives to LVT, or luxury vinyl tile, as a precursor to two events we will host in November about the negative health and environmental impacts of vinyl and plastic flooring products. We hope you'll join us for these upcoming events as well. And now I'm excited to introduce our guest for today, Duracryl. Duracryl creates seamless, resilient flooring using plant-based biopolymers as a binder, as well as aggregates made from recycled content. These biopolymers are made from vegetable oils, and their products are either carbon neutral or carbon negative. Their product offerings include bio-based alternatives to flexible, resilient flooring, terrazzo, and concrete, as well as wear-resistant linoleum. Duracryl is committed to material transparency and is doing their part to lead the industry away from toxic flooring products without sacrificing performance. And now I'll leave it to them to tell us more. Take it away, Stacy. Oh, you're on mute, Stacy.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you for allowing us to be with you today. We really appreciate the opportunity, and we hope to teach you a few things, but we also would like to paint a picture for you today that's both inspiring as well as thought-provoking. So the journey begins in a not so all-inclusive history of flooring. So we start out with our ancestors, the caveman. Of course, we know they had primitive floors of caves and such as that. We move forward a few hundred years into the Egyptians, where they actually carved blocks out of quarries of travertine, limestone, and marble. We move forward on to the Romans. The Romans actually are said to be the inventors of terrazzo. And now we're going to take a giant leap forward into the industrial age, where we believe that if you see the smokestack in the background, I'm certain that all of these inventors and inventions have served us well over the years, but I think that we have overpopulated ourselves with the next best thing. So moving into the industrial age, we meet a gentleman by the name of Frederick Walton, who by happenstance found a paint can with no lid on it one day, and the dry layer that was on top gave him an idea. He mixed and matched ingredients until he discovered success. Voila, in 1860, linoleum was born. By 1869, he had not only found a great product for Europe, he began exporting to America as well, and eventually moved to America, spent 2 years in America, and started his own American dream. He teamed up with a carpet manufacturer named John Crossley. And fun fact, do you know, those of you that live in New York, that there was a borough in Staten Island called Linoleumville? Linoleumville was what, 300 acres of that. And Luam, you're smiling because I told you yesterday, is that really real? So I found out it is. And Linoleumville in in 1869 or in the early 1870s, they bought 300 acres of land in Staten Island. 1930, the residents hated the name so much they changed it to Travis, so it's now Travis Borough. Fun fact for you New Yorkers. So even moving further into the future, popularity of linoleum has come and gone over the years, making a recent comeback because of its eco-friendly aspects. And continuing forward, we meet Jeroen Vandenberg. He went to work for his father-in-law in the early 90s. By the early 2000s, he found himself in a leadership position and eventually owning the company. Jeroen, in his early days in the company, worked as an installer. He installed linoleum, sheet vinyl, and many other types of floor covering, which included terrazzo, both cementitious and later epoxy terrazzos. Working with these materials pushed his drive to invent better products, healthier for the installer as well as sustainable for our environment, which led to the name Duracryl. Jeroen, as is all of Duracryl International, are deeply woven into the fabric of the flooring industry, creating lines of floor like no other. They're pourable, seamless, resilient, and fully sustainable flooring. We can even use the term carbon negative in the instance of the lines that we discussed today, and carbon neutral in our other lines. So Jeroen, would you please give us a bit of history about Duracryl as well as tell us how you came up with Cork's liquid lino?
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Luam, also for giving us the opportunity to present our company and our products here on screen. Duracryl, as Stacy mentioned, is a family-owned business. I'm the third generation, and the fourth generation is already lined up since 1938. And we started as a professional, durable supplier of seamless, resilient, and hard floor coverings. So we did both the screeding and we did also all the installations from earlier floors for Gerrit Rietveld, who was one of the first users of liquid applied flooring in the 50s, up to the representative floors for multinational schools, museums, and offices in our time. On the left side, you'll see the main entrance of our sales office in Holland, nearby Rotterdam. And on the right, you see the actual production facilities where we produce and manufacture the liquid products. Our background, as I just mentioned, our roots are in the installation. So we know about products, we know about floor coverings, we know what they have to do, what they have to provide, what is expected from these products. But we also saw the backside, the downsides of the products supplied up till then. Here, this is a kind of as a tribute to the linoleum installers. But if you look at their faces, they're wondering, where do I go with this roll? Because if you think of this concept of a roll being manufactured in a factory on a certain width, normally it's I think it's 6 feet or 2 meters. It actually never fits. The length is limited. The weight is excessive because it's 400 pounds for a roll of linoleum. And our guys doing the installation always were struggling. You had to make installations, layouts, cutting losses, because the cutting losses is one of the major issues we are also wanting to address. Because avoiding cutting losses, we are talking about normally on a roll like this, 10 to 15% cutting losses. And it's just produced in vain. It has cost energy, it has cost raw materials. It's being transported all around the world, and it just ends up in the landfill. So when we came to think about other ways of installing floors, liquid installed floors was the idea. So this knowledge about floor coverings led to the invention of the liquid lino. Just to give you a bit of an idea on the total coverage of resilient floor coverings worldwide, we're talking about 80% being PVC. PVC is just vinyl. Vinyl is what the industry came up because it sounds a bit softer, it sounds a bit nicer. LVT is used, the word LVT. In Holland, we use the word vinyl. But at the end of the day, it is PVC, polyvinyl chloride. 80% of all floor coverings commercially used is PVC. Then it's 10% about linoleum, and we're talking about 5% rubber and 5% others. So there is still a lot of just plastics around. And I think we have a task if we can change the PVC to a more sustainable product with a less carbon footprint and a less toxic character, because we know that PVC is listed on the red list. The red list is commonly used in the US. It has actually two components on the red list. It has the polyvinyl chloride as being toxic, but also the plasticizers, the kind of which weakens the product, commonly used as the phthalates. 30% of the plasticizers is put into the PVC. Otherwise, your PVC would be as rigid as a sewer pipe, so hard plastic. So actually, the industry puts 30% plasticizers in the PVC to make it flexible. But that's one of the downsides of the product as well, because these plasticizers evaporate over time. So they go into your system, they go into your bodies, and that's also common practice, and it's widely known. We know that some manufacturers change to less harmful plasticizers like non-phthalates, but the industry is struggling because at the end of the day, all the plasticizers still evaporate, making the vinyl more brittle and harder and losing the resilience. And so this is where we started with the Corks liquid linoleum, knowing about the downsides of this roll installation, heavy labor. Corks liquid lino starts a revolution in the resilient flooring. We changed the old concept of the factory manufactured linoleum in rolls to a liquid poured version of the linoleum, which is applied seamlessly on site. And the superior properties of the Corks liquid lino matches the original linoleum characteristics. And we add quite a lot more, because besides the fact that it's we have no cutting losses, it is non-directional. We have no welded seams. We don't need adhesive. Adhesive has a major impact on global warming potential because it's just a petroleum-based product. And a sheet linoleum is still a very nice product. It is based on the same ingredients we're using, but still it needs a welding rod, which is polyethylene. It's a plastic. And the adhesive is being used is a full petroleum product. And with all the emissions can be avoided when you install the liquid linoleum directly on the subfloor without adhesive, and also giving the major advantage to having it taken out in the future without the adhesive, so it can be 100% recycled. Where if you look at the EPD from other manufacturers, whereas Forbo, for instance, all the applied linoleum, sheet linoleum, because of the adhesive and the jute backing, goes into incineration. There's on a glued linoleum floor, sheet linoleum floor, there's absolutely no possibility of recycling because of the polluted ingredients. This is a project we did about 5 years ago, and it shows really all the benefits of the liquid installation. If you look at the left upper picture, there are no seams. These radiator panels, normally you would have cut them out in a sheet material, but this is just poured around it. So there's absolutely no waste, and there's no seams, there's no adhesive, there's no hollow spots, which is common in a material which is being glued to the floor, because then it's being checked if there has no hollow spot. This is just it bonds when you pour it, but it bonds in a way that it can be removed in the future. You see that it has a very nice characteristic of being seamless, being just one pour, without joints and without losing also without losing the flexibility over time, because that's one of the downsides of the sheet material of linoleum. The oxidation continues over time, so that this is why a roll of linoleum, which has been standing there for 4 or 5 years in the warehouse, is almost impossible to install, because it's brittle and it's hard, and it has lost all resilience. So as I was just mentioning, I really appreciate that we are having the possibility about the fall of plastics and choosing healthier products. And we also like to emphasize that besides choosing healthier products, healthier flooring products, it is important to look at the carbon footprint of the product itself, because we know also that, for instance, rubber flooring, which is considered to be also a red list free product and has also is quite popular in the health environments and hospitals. It is one of the most carbon polluting products on the market. Just to give you some numbers, LVT has 3.7 pounds per square feet. Linoleum, and then we're all talking cradle to cradle, so in the whole process of the product, linoleum, sheet linoleum 1.2, so it's better, but not and for instance the rubber 2.8 pounds per square feet. So if you just multiply by the millions of square footage which is installed per year everywhere, we were just discussing, it's a multi-million square footage, because everywhere there's flooring, all hospitals, schools, residential, all around the world. So it makes an impact if you can choose products which are healthier and also which have a less carbon footprint to contribute to what we all want, a less heating up of the earth and contributing to the Paris Treaty we are all aiming for. So this is basically what we set 10 years ago, going for products with as less carbon footprint as possible, products which have not listed on the red list, no toxic ingredients, and this is really something which is getting more and more interest. That's why we are probably here as well, because everybody now is talking about it. And 10 years ago, it was just a far less issue, but now everybody is more aware, and this is all about awareness, because people are. I was just having the conversation here with people here in Holland. A lot of people have LVT, this plastic, as we call it, phony wood, this plastic thing, and they put it in their houses. They let their children play on it. It's just plastic, and we're all talking about plastic soup, and we put it in our house and in our hospitals, where we should expect to have a bit more healthy product than go for PVC. So this is.
Can I interject something from an aesthetic point of view? This hospital, when I walked into this hospital for the first time, it was, my husband laughs because I say it was a religious experience. We typically in America go into hospitals or large buildings and the floors are so shiny, they create an anxiety in us to try to fight the sunshine or whatever is shining, glaring on the floor. And they're off to the right, the picture up on the left, off to the right, is a cafe where you should hear clanking plates and clanking utensils. People, you know, in a hospital, people are everywhere. The sound was so dampened, and I'm almost certain that it was our floor that dampened the that dampened the sound, because it covers the entire space, the entire hospital, and it's very open. The windows, it's windows all the way across the front, but it was such an enveloping experience just with the floor that didn't harm your eyes, and you felt like you were in a safe place. And so I just wanted to interject that, as every time I see this picture, I think of when I walked into this space. We see so many different patterns and things on the floor in the United States that in the Netherlands, typically, am I right, Jeroen, that in the Netherlands, it's normally fairly soft monolithic flooring and things like that.
It is. It used to be a bit more vibrant colors in the 20 years ago, where it was custom to go for all kind of patterns and different colors. But now we are doing recent installs in schools for 60,000 square foot. It's just one color. It's all very plain. It's very yeah, it's more subtle, but that's down to culture, and that's down to what's in fashion and taste. So that's a bit hard
Right.
to judge. But you're right. It is a sound battling product, as well as the Durabella, where Bas is going to tell you about the Terrazzo, also bio-based, 40% more sound absorbing than an epoxy Terrazzo, for instance. Because sometimes there's a bit of a misunderstanding. People say, I want a hard floor, and I want it be, and we say, no, your floor has to be sturdy, it has to be tough, it has to be resilient.
Right. And this is a floor, before we pass it to Bas, the quartz liquid line allows, especially operating rooms in healthcare facilities. Hopefully there's no operating rooms in other facilities, but the floor, you can float the floor up to our base, and it creates a completely encapsulated floor so that no fluids can get underneath the floor. In the case of traditional linoleum, there's always the issue of old linoleum, and the seams may break. In this particular operating room, an operation had just been completed, and they pulled the gurney out, taking the person back to the care room that they were to go to, and they pulled the linoleum out along with the gurney. And so this is not bacterial friendly when you pull away seams in an operating room. So that's why they opted to have our flooring put in their space, so that wouldn't happen again. So I just wanted to include that as well.
I think we'll leave it now to Bas. Bas is, coincidentally, I met Bas through LinkedIn, and he was already for 20 years in the US, and it turned out that we went to the same high school together here in Holland. So we just joined forces, and since then Bas is the COO in Dallas, in our office in Dallas. Bas, you're on.
Thank you all. Interesting so far. Indeed, we met in 2019 through LinkedIn. By coincidence, I got an invite from somebody, and then Jeroen's face popped up, and I was like, well, he went to the same high school as me. Let's see what he did. And he was in flooring, and I've been in flooring since 2013. And I forewarn everybody, if you are in flooring, be careful, because you cannot get out of it. It's a disease. It's like, I call it fashion. I was in the apparel industry before. Flooring is similar as apparel. You work with designs, you work with colors, you work with many options. And sometimes also you have to say, okay, stop, wait, what are we doing? And let's create something different. And that's what really attracted me to Duracryl as a company. Besides the fact that Jeroen gave me the opportunity to open up Duracryl in the US. We choose Dallas as our location because it's almost always nice weather there. It is a very pleasant fact, but also we can fly out from Dallas to anywhere in the US, which is what we are covering. We actually are covering the entire country plus Canada. We have 9 reps who are working for us, who are in daily contact with the architects and design world, and who are promoting our products. This building is where we started, and we are at the verge to be grown out of it. So most likely we will add another facility to it. Our neighbor is talking to us about leaving, and we see what we can do there. It's a little bit depending on what happens in the coming months. As I said, we started in 2019, March 2019. We could not have chosen a better time frame, because a year after we started, we got hit with COVID, which did not actually set us back, but made us stronger. We had time to relevate what we were doing, and besides the fact that we were just focusing on the liquid lino, what we brought to the market, the Corks liquid lino, we realized that there were other products as well what needed some reevaluation, like the Terrazzo. For the corks, I would like to mention that you might see a different name in the market with the same product. We actually made a deal with Mannington, well known, I think, by the most architects and designers, and we are producing a private label Corks liquid lino product for them, what they bring to the market as Legato. It's the same product as what we bring to the market, and we work very closely together with them. So just a side note for that. In regards to the Terrazzo, which is my favorite product because it has more color and there are more possibilities. We walked one day into an architect firm and we saw this sign that bisphenol A had to be banned out of the industry. That really got my interest. Bisphenol A is also red listed, like nonylphenol, can cause cancer, and is mainly used in all epoxy products. Epoxy products are a well-known standard in the industry, especially in Terrazzo. It is a product which, it is used for hardening to create a hardness in the liquids. There are other options, so we use our biopolymer. We use the same type of aggregates, stone marble aggregates, as the standard Terrazzo industry is using. We checked out with the standard guys who were making Terrazzo, and already we gave them samples and we asked them, what is this? What do you think this is? And they didn't see the difference between an epoxy or a Durabella Terrazzo, which is the name of our product. We tried to create a brand name for the Durabella as well. So it stands for something. It stands for a healthy product, sustainable and environmental friendly. The biopolymer is also bio-based, so the products are created with oils from the flax plant and the castor plant, which are growing all over the world. We bring them together to the Netherlands, and that's where we cook and bake our products in drums. Stacey, can you move the slides a little faster, please? So we try to create a better product. Here you see a drum with biopolymer, where we have to mix everything together. That goes in buckets. Everything what we produce is poured in buckets and then shipped all over the world. You see master bags for aggregates, which we then pack into smaller bags, 50-pound weight, so people can lift them without breaking their bag. The aggregates are purchased and found all over the world. Me personally, I'm a fighter for using local aggregates, because the less we ship them, the less carbon we create. Also, it's usually a fun story for people to be able to tell consumers that there is a local product into their flooring. So if we do, for example, talk about an airport in Guadalajara, then we try to search or source the aggregates in the Guadalajara area in Mexico. If we're working on a project in Dallas, we work with aggregates from Canyon Falls in Texas. It's a local story, but it's also a sustainable story.
This is also nice, Bas, to tell about the use of the recycled concrete as aggregate in in the Durabella as well. Where
Well, indeed, Jeroen, it's a part of our new economy where we move faster and faster into what we call a circular economy, where we are reusing materials. So we have a glass supplier. Actually, it's a glass collector. They recycle glass. They recycle it from a bottle or a pot, a jar, into small pieces, and we actually have them color it for us in the color we want, and then we reuse that in the floor. Most recently, we made a floor in Orlando for a retail store where we used recycled Coca-Cola glass we got from Mexico. They wanted a special green glass. We also can reuse aggregates, which we win out of concrete. So we separate the cement from the stones and can reuse that as well. So we are always trying to find something new. The biggest advantage of using a biopolymer in Terrazzo is that it is a flexible material. If you walk through airports, if you walk through stores, government buildings, and you see Terrazzo floors, then often you see also cracks in the floor. Cracks are created by movement in the subfloor, or the building is shifting. The standard epoxy terrazzo is so hard. It is so hard that it will last indeed 100 years, but also it cracks when the building starts moving, when there is movement. With a biopolymer, which has elasticity and which you can bend, you will never have that issue. It's also a seamless product. You can pour it wall to wall without having seams. You can match up colors side by side. It's almost limitless what you can do with it. We have an example where we actually made a floor with recycled mother of pearl buttons in the floor, and we grind the buttons up. It's beautiful. This project is just an example of what we can do. It's a bare floor. The red dots are set out for the self-leveling compound, what had to be poured. We recommend always to use self-leveling compounds under our product to get a nice and flat floor. Picture on the right, you see some lines in there. That's actually a 3D printed product, which is made from recycled plastic bottles, water bottles. And we grind that together with the floor once we grind it. The colors are unlimitless. The picture in the middle is the finished store. It's actually the creation store. And if you look well, you see in the back, it's in the Epcot Center in Orlando. So we supply companies like Disney, Apple, Google, Microsoft, BMW, just to name a few. Actual is our partner in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, who creates the 3D print, which we use in the Terrazzo to make a line design, where we then adhere the line design to the floor, and we fill the spaces in between with the Terrazzo. Once the Terrazzo is grinded, the line pattern comes up. These are just some pictures of a floor where we use 3D prints. On the left is Die Welt or Der Welt. My German is not that good, but it's a showroom where BMW in Munich presents their new models, their new cars. The one on the right I recognize is Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. I think that started 5 years ago, Jeroen, right?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, and it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big process. That's where the patterns are used as for wayfinding, for example. So it has a function there as well. It's not only decorative. And the one in the middle, it is a leaf, but I don't recognize whether it has been used.
Schiphol as well.
It's Schiphol as well. Okay.
Yeah. This is also something, the Durabella can also be laid unbonded, loose laid, so we can also install it on top of a raised access flooring, allowing it to be removed in the future. Because it doesn't shrink, it doesn't need any trims. It is flexible, and it has major advantages over, besides of not being toxic, compared with the epoxy terrazzo.
It's actually a reason why I'm in New York at the moment, because I'm checking out JFK Airport, where they have extreme moisture issues. It's built on a swamp, and where we are talking about installing in what is it? Terminal 8 is where we are going to install Terrazzo loose lay, not bonded to the subfloor.
I'm not allowed to say that this is an earthquake-proof floor, but those of you who do designing on the West Coast where there are many earthquakes, it's a great example of a floor that's not flexible, that dances with the movement of the surface that it's applied to.
This picture is my pride, because it's the first floor installed, or the first Durabella Terrazzo floor installed in the US. It's in Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital. It's at the 14th floor, and it is installed actually outdoors 2 years ago. These pictures are actually made 2 years after the floor was installed. One of the big benefits of the Durabella product is that you can install it outdoors and that it is UV resistant, so it will not change color over time. Also, we have developed a finish for the product, which makes it extra slip resistant. So you can actually walk on it without having the necessary sign, be careful, wet floor.
The beauty of our company too, also, the person that sold this job came back later and said, Stace, I know we have to put bread and butter on the table, but he said, this one, he said, touched me in the heart. He said, I feel like we actually did something for humanity, not only for the sustainability of the product, but the people on this floor is, I believe it's an end of life floor. This is the only place that they can get outside. And the floor was so cracked and messed up prior to this application with the former epoxy terrazzo that was there, that the outdoors was shut off because of tripping hazards. So that's a beauty of our company, is that we really appreciate those that we work with and work as a family as well.
Red list free. That's what we ask for everybody. Please, before you specify a product, check out if they are red list free. If there are no organics products used in the product which are on the red list, such as the polyvinyl chlorine, such as the bisphenol A, the nonylphenol. If you type actually Google red list, you get a list of all the products what you should not use. How do you find out? Very easy. Just ask a manufacturer for the EPD or the HPD. We as a company have registered all our products with Toxnot. Toxnot leads to Mindful Materials, leads to red list free, because you don't want to put a product out there and you will be put on a list like Mindful Materials and it is showing that you use hazardous chemicals. So red list free, which is actually created by the International Living Future Institute, which started in the US, which was founded by Jason McLennan, an architect in Seattle. Now also has an establishment in Italy, in Bolzano, where they are working on the European market. But this organization and the red list is what everybody actually should use as a guide to create healthier and better environments for all of us.
I think there's also a mutual understanding on this toxic products, because I think cradle to cradle banned list of chemicals is kind of showing all the same ingredients as the one on the red list. This is also something we find with the PVC producers, with the vinyl producers, to say, but our product is very good recyclable. Besides that, it's hard to get it out with the adhesive still underneath. But making a toxic product recyclable, it doesn't really do the job, because we also say that you can also recycle asbestos, but that doesn't make it a good product. You have to start with a non-toxic product with as low carbon footprint as possible. I think that's basically where we start from, and then all the other things are benefits where we have to look into. We can remove our products without adhesive. It's clean. It can be clean removed, and it can be recycled. And then the other thing is, when you go for the Durabella, for instance, these type of floors will last 100 years. So that's also durable, using products which last for a very long time. The corks liquid lino is easily removed from the subfloor and can be recycled, but it can also be after years of long usage, it can be resealed, replenished, revitalized without removing it completely. So this is also a feature of the product.
I think we have enough time, Luam, for questions. If anyone would like to throw some questions out, that's fine. Or we
Yes,
can
thank
keep
you all.
talking.
No, this was fantastic. So much good information, and we actually have a lot of questions coming in through the chat. So feel free to chat your questions, everyone. If you have one. And yeah, so why don't we start with the first question that came in through the chat. So what is the best substrate for removal? Can this be put on any substrate?
And basically what we also, and that also comes back from the background we have, a resilient floor covering should be installed on a leveled subfloor, so equal to what installers are used to with sheet materials. So the same preparation in principle applies for installing liquid linoleum. The only thing is that you don't need the adhesive, but the preparation of the subfloor more or less needs to be similar. It has to be leveled, clean, dry, firm, just equals to any other resilient floor covering.
Okay, and another question. How are these products recycled after use? Do the added plastic bits still make recycling possible?
That's the plastic referred to in the 3D printing, probably.
The 3D print, the company Actual can recycle their three-dimensional printed objects. They can recycle them up to 9 times.
And if the floor is taken out, the 3D print line separates from the Durabella. But
okay.
if it's okay, then the floor will be there for the next 95 years to come. So maybe that's the next generation finding out what they're going to do with the recycled product, because it will last a long, long time.
Okay. And can you talk maybe about like price comparisons between your products and other resilient floors that might be toxic?
Sorry, what was
not everybody jump at once. We discussed this earlier. It was the question that I asked you guys earlier about the price comparison between epoxy products and the liquid linoleum.
With
What are
with the Durabella, the comparison between the epoxy and the Durabella product, for example, the biopolymer Terrazzo. When we started this process, it will be the Durabella is about 10% more expensive than as a product than the epoxy product, though the biopolymer is installed in a different way, which is faster. So in the installation time, there's a win there. The market is changing actually dramatically at the moment. There's a huge shortage of materials for the epoxy materials. There are longer lead times, where the lead times a year ago were a week. Now they are up to 12 weeks, and their prices have gone up to 40% higher. So at the moment, we are actually about 10% more cost effective than the epoxy materials and can supply.
And over time, Luam, the epoxy terrazzos are become very brittle. So there's a lot of potential for repairs. And because of the flexibility of the Durabella, there's not as likely a chance to have such repairs due to natural cracking of a subfloor, concrete floor.
Okay,
And
great.
repairs
sorry.
in general, by the way, sorry, I have to add something. The repairs in general are easier to make. We make circles when we do a repair. We have had experiences where people were shown, this is actually what we did for Disney. We showed them that we damaged the floor, then we repaired the floor, and people who actually saw the floor before could not find the repairs back. They had to put marks on the places where the repairs were done, otherwise they could not point it out anymore. So we don't make them invisible, but it's very hard to find them back. I saw somewhere a question if our products can be used at the walls. That's actually not possible because they're all liquid, and liquid has a tendency when it is applied on a wall, it will come down. So no applications on the wall unless it's the terrazzo. We can do some precast.
Okay, great. We have several questions about installation. One of them was, yeah, if it can go on a wall, but also, do you have licensed installers? How does that installation work? Do you work in residential applications as well? Maybe you can talk about that. Another question is, can this material be used in container homes, tiny homes, etc.? Maybe you could tell us a little more about your installation process, if it can work in small applications, if it can work well in residential settings.
If you're thinking about a floor covering, like any sheet material, like sheet linoleum or LVT, where you can install a classic floor covering, you can also install a liquid linoleum. The only thing is where we are struggling is on a slope. So that's not possible. But for the rest, if you keep in mind, if you could install a sheet material or a plank or an LVT or whatever, you can also install the liquid linoleum.
Okay, great.
Residential, commercial, anywhere. There's a lot of residential installs in Holland because people like it. They put it in their living homes, they put it in their bathrooms, they put it in their sleeping rooms. So it's quite popular product as an alternative to all other classic.
Residential is not common in the US right now with the liquid linoleum because of the fact that people just don't know about the product and are not aware of the benefits of the product. And what I see mainly in the residential world is that it is a very price-driven world. So where people can use the plastics, the LVTs, is where they easily go for a plastic product or a wood product. What we hear a lot is why plastic is used, because people want to see a wood print. So it's fake wood, as Juran called it. So it is not common yet, but I think with people getting more aware of what's going on, it will become more popular, and there is a demand already, but it's minor.
Okay, great. So I'm just kind of grouping questions because we have so many, but a lot of the questions are also about leveling, about self-leveling, and what kind of eco-friendly self-leveling compounds are there? Are there different applications that may not be level that this material can work on?
We have some installation videos on YouTube, because I was just looking at one of the questions that it seems to be harder to install. The good thing is that we have a special notched trowel allowing the exact amount of material to be spread on top of the subfloor, making it leveled and even. So it's a relatively, it requires skills, definitely. It's not but it doesn't require any more skills than a skilled sheet linoleum installer.
Okay.
Can I also mention that this floor, the liquid linoleum, can be installed over, let's say there's a renovation going on in a historical building, and there's old VCT there that they don't want to disturb because of asbestos. The liquid linoleum can be put over that. You have to put a leveler on it first, and then the linoleum can be put on top of that. So there's no mitigation that has to happen.
We actually encapsulate the old asbestos.
Okay, and what is the most cost-effective scale in terms of labor and installation cost? Does this make sense in smaller projects? Sorry if you already kind of answered that in the previous questions.
You probably will see that also in a smaller job, sheet linoleum will be more expensive than the liquid linoleum. So what we normally see, in general, I think the installed liquid linoleum is comparable price-wise with sheet linoleum.
Okay, and we have some questions about EPDs. Does your EPD include the carbon captured by the plants during growth? What would happen to the plants otherwise if not made into linseed oil?
These plantations, they're growing these crops for all kind of use, for linseed use and for paints and all. So the industry requires linseed oil. So there's just a demand. So if the demand will drop, probably these plantations will no longer grow the flax plant. The only thing is what we can assure is that there's no forest being removed for the palm oil, which is at the moment a bit of a discussion in South America, where these forests are being removed just for plantations of palm oil, and that's not the issue. The linseed oil is already in production for many years, and the plantations are there, and there's no subsidizing forest to plantations of linseed oil.
And then the cork coming from the cork tree is a renewable resource. You take the cork off of the barks of the trees, and within a few years it's grown back. So there's no cutting trees in that aspect either.
Okay, great. And can you comment on any synergies between healthier, non-toxic, and lower carbon footprint?
It doesn't necessarily have to be. So it's always, you have to look at both things. I think if you have a non-toxic product, so the lower carbon comes from renewable resources, because by using vegetable-based and cork, the embodied carbon have a better outcome in the carbon footprint of the product, and that's something else than being toxic or non-toxic.
Just to throw a number at it, it's, for example, if you take the castor plant and you take 1 acre of castor plants during a growth season, that takes about 80 tons of carbon dioxide out of the air during the growth season. So that will translate then into the EPD.
Okay, we have, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, we just have so many questions here.
If you want to put all these questions together and we can answer them afterwards by email or something, we will gladly be willing to, if that's something we can add to your presentation, or
Or if someone has a question which is not answered, they can always send it to sales@duracryl.com.
Yeah, send it by email. Yeah,
we gladly answer all the emails without a problem. I saw a question about Canada. Canada, we consider North America. So yes, we have presence there, and we are covering everything between Toronto and Vancouver.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, we had some questions about how you work in Canada as well. So I think we'll just wrap up here.
Can I say one more thing? I think we didn't touch enough on the customizability of the floors. The corks can be customizable to colors. You can have different colors in the same hallway or in the same area. They can be poured up next to one another and create a colorful piece of artwork as well. The Terrazzo can be customizable to the binder. You can get any color in the Pantone system. The aggregates, you can get anything from recycled, like Boss mentioned, recycled glass. You can use glass bottles, such as there's a distribution center in the Netherlands called Heineken, if you've heard of that. They use recycled Heineken bottles as well as recycled crates that the Netherlands is probably bar none with recyclability. So when they drink their beer, they recycle the bottle, and whenever the crates reach their end of life, they recycle them as well. And so anything that your mind can imagine, we can discuss putting into a floor.
Great. And maybe just before we wrap up, maybe you could talk about the maintenance of the product and the lifespans of these, of the products that you mentioned today.
In general, as we just mentioned, the Durabella will last for 100 years. So we give the normal maintenance regime, which is the client is used to. That's kind of can be either just by using water and a diamond pad, and that's the most sustainable to avoid any of the polymer waxes, and especially the polymer waxes have to be replenished and be removed after several years. So our main goal would be just to use diamond pads, because that's a non-chemical way of maintenance. And also the Corks liquid linoleum has a finish, so it does not need any putting on any polymer waxing, what's normally done on linoleum. So after many years of usage, you can reapply the finish or buff it up after 10, 15 years or 5 years in front of the escalator. So it's depending on the wear and tear, but it's all mainly without using any polymer waxes on top.
We also didn't mention the antimicrobial aspect of the corks as well as the Durabella.
Yep.
Our problem is we can talk for 2 hours.
I know.
Well, unfortunately, we
One
don't have
question
2
what I
hours.
saw frequently is the self-leveling process, self-leveling compounds. I saw even one time, why don't these guys produce their own self-leveling compounds? Our products are self-leveling. We do not produce self-leveling compounds because it's a different industry, but we have very good relationships with almost every producer in the industry, like Schönox, like Ladecrete, just to name 2. But we are not in that industry. It's an industry by itself. So it is a recommendation to be used under our floors.
Okay, great. Well, as I said, we have many questions, and they'll come through sales@duracryl.com. Please feel free to contact Duracryl directly with other questions that you have. And there are lots of great questions. Sorry that we didn't get to answer them all. So thank you all for joining us today, and thank you to Duracryl for this engaging and informative talk. I hope the information learned today will inform your practices or your education. For more information and resources on healthier and sustainable materials, please visit our website, healthymaterialslab.org, to find out more about our online courses, a curated materials collection, and many tools and guides. You will see Duracryl's cork liquid lino in our flooring collection. And follow us on Instagram. The handle is Healthy Materials Lab. And tune into our excellent podcast, Trace Material, and join us for the next 2 events in this series, The Fall of Plastics. On November 10th, we'll have a first ever Trace Material Live with Pete Myers. And on November 17th, we'll host a Center for Environmental Health and Material Research to reveal insights into a new study on the environmental and health impacts of LVT. Those are both at noon Eastern time, just like today. And thank you so much to everyone who attended. Thank you so much to Stacy, Jerome, and Bas for all of this great information. And we look forward to seeing you at the next event, everyone else.